All right. So, hello everyone. As Sam introduced me, my name is Rohan, and for this talk, I just wanted to kind of go over how I approach like group hacking concepts, because for me personally, as a hacker, I never did group hacking a lot. I was more of a solo hacker where I, just go to my room and then hack every day or something like that along the way. But this year, being in a college and having a group of friends who are interested on the same thing as me kind of gave me an idea to move more into group hacking and the concepts of that. So I wanted to go over the whole idea of how you can approach group hacking. I have been monitoring the chat on YouTube for a while now, and I already know some of the hackers there that do really good group hacking as well. And I'll kind of be giving them a shout out as well because those are the people that kind of impressed me, influenced me to get into group hacking. So I'll discuss more of that as we go. But before we jump into that, just a quick introduction of who I am. Um, as I already said, my name is Ron Rihal. I'm currently a student at Cal State Fullerton, California State University, and then I'm a junior doing a computer science bachelor's right now. So that's what my primary focus is. I do security related stuff at my school. So we have a club here known as Offensive Security Society. I'm an active member of that. And then that's what I kind of do. That's where I met people that are interested on the same things as me. I'll be mentioning them as we go to the presentation because those are the people that I hacked with this vulnerability that I'll discuss today. And also, if you want to follow me on my bug bounty profiles, I have both my Bugcrowd and HackerOne. Both of them have the same usernames, Rihal Rohan, first or last name, first name. And then for my Twitter, I go with Uranium Hacker on my Twitter account. So some of you might have already followed me. I basically share like all my blogs through that Twitter account, and then sometimes other like random stuff that if you're interested into those kind of stuff. Thank you, Spectres, for that. Name is dope comment. I like that. I came up with that when I was in high school. I was really into science and other stuff. And same with Offensive Security Society. I really like that name. So thank you very much for liking those. That said, let's jump into the slides. So just a background on what the research is, because just telling you guys, we're going to discuss over the research won't give you any idea of what I wanted to focus on or what this whole topic or this whole research was. So a quick introduction to it is about year ago or 2 years ago when I was a freshman in college, so around 2017-18, NT released a blog post on Medium that was super viral. A lot of hackers looked into it, and it was called How I Hacked Hundreds of Companies Through Their Help Desk. And it was really interesting to me when I read it because I really like looking into corporate systems. Even though I'm more of a web app hacker, I like to look into how I can get inside a company, whether it's through their Google sites, their internal management, and other instances. So seeing that blog from him really got me excited because he had managed to get access into Slack instances, internal Jira instance, and many other sub companies. So I tried reproducing it, but as we all know, when that blog came out, Slack had already managed to push out a fix with updating emails. So the email was no longer like no reply at slack.com, but it was more of no reply dash like random alphanumeric instance at slack.com. And then it was fixed. So a lot of hackers tried to still attack it. The Zendesk support system part still worked, but then Zendesk was actively monitoring and adding spam filters, fixing like different ways to send emails and all that. So I was really into that, started researching more on it. And then I met two really good friends of mine, Brendan and Sripal Rawal. They both are part of Offensive Security Society at my school. So when I met them, they were getting into bug bounties, and I started talking to them about different things I had found and different things I was looking into. And one of them was this instance. So I'll dive more into the timeline of how this all vulnerability went. But basically, we started by exploiting Google emails. So what we decided was everyone is trying to do support attack, but why not just get the company's email verified on Google through Zendesk and then log into every place we can with that email and see what we get. So at the end, we had exploited about 25 companies, managed to find a lot of critical vulnerabilities through a lot of companies with that. And one of the example report, I think a lot of people have seen this, is the GitLab report that we sent, where at, I think it was around 7 p.m. or something, we got access to internal instances of GitLab, and it was super bad. Like, we were kind of surprised that we got access and we're freaking out. So that's why I wanted to share about this specific report, because it was something truly a laptop closing and then walking around the room kind of situation. I literally closed my laptop, walked around the whole building for a while to relax my energy, and then got back into hacking again. So that's what we'll be discussing on this as we move. So let's go to the story timeline of how we came up with this, what happened during the research and everything like that. So the first part of this whole thing was understanding how the situation worked and exploiting the Zendesk first. So I was testing a company. I have not been given the permission to name the company, so I'll just say company X. And I managed to get their Zendesk attack work. But when I reported it, the analyst from the company side responded saying it was a duplicate because another hacker had managed to get it beforehand, which was because I knew it was going to happen. I had talked with the hacker in the past, and when talking with them, he mentioned that, yeah, I had reported it, but he hadn't like exploited it to the basic instance of getting into Yammer of the company, which didn't have much information on it. So I started looking into more of it, and the company personnel himself said, if you manage to escalate this to something, we might consider this as a valid bug. So while I was at school, I had a class at 5 p.m. I was like, all right, I need to get this to work. I need to attack this. I want that bounty. And 4 p.m. around, I was testing the Atlassian instance of signing up on Atlassian, and it sent me a verification email saying, verify support at company.a.com on Atlassian, and you will get access to your own Atlassian system. That was because I had signed up my own Atlassian instance. But when I clicked verify, and I went to their Atlassian instance, because it was like company.a.atlassian.net, I managed to get into it, and then I had access to all the security reports that was coming in. It had all the serious things that you could find, all P0s, P1s, everything being released. All of that information was there. And that's where I understood this could be exploited to a massive level, where you could get access to a lot of companies' Atlassian instance and all of that critical things. As soon as I found that, I decided, well, this is the time where I report it and let the company know. I discussed with the company, and they started working on a fix right away. But something that right then, I was working with those friends, so we decided this is super cool, let's kind of understand this further. So what I did was, we decided to focus more on how live hacking events work. So if you haven't been to a live hacking event or a bug bash that Buckrowd does, there's usually an aspect called show and tell, where companies select one of the their best reports that they got for the day or anything similar around that, to kind of discuss about the vulnerability that the hacker found, what his approach was, how to attack that. And right then, at around 8 p.m., we decided to meet up in our room. So we have a small private room at our school for our club. We did a quick presentation of how I exploited it, what was the requirements from Zendesk side, so requiring support emails, anything that we needed, and we started taking notes of every attacks that we could do. So once we had done that, the next day we came back to our room and started planning the whole research, because at that point we knew we could exploit this to more companies, but we just needed to manage it well and not be super noisy about it. And we started attacking it from February 20th. We went till, I think, around March, April. And then we released our blog on 04/19/2019. And that's when we discussed the whole exploit. That said, I kind of want to go over the strategies that we used that I think is super important, because if you don't use the strategies, you are likely going to have some failure throughout the way, especially in group hacking. And for our research, we needed to have a proper strategy because it could be super noisy. You are emailing a support company and you could have a lot of, support persons just focus on your ticket if you're emailing them multiple times, which is wasting their time. And a prime example of that is once I found this company person reached out to me, and then like I was discussing with him and he said, I challenge you to find this on my company, on the company that I'm security engineer at. And I said, all right, I'll look into it. I'll see what I can do. And I started emailing the company like multiple times because one time it'll work, the second time it won't. So I wanted to see how this whole thing will work. I wanted to see if the company was even vulnerable because there were instances where it will not work. And at the end of the day, the director of customer success just emailed me and he was like, hey, I know who you are. I know you are from HackerOne. You're trying to hack into our system for our bug bounty program, which I'm completely in support of. But I'm just going to close our reports because it's taking the time away from my team. It's adding into our queues. So please be mindful of that. And once I saw that, I knew I had to like plan it out better because I was wasting their time and I was wasting my time when I'm emailing them like 10 times or something. So that's where the strategist person comes out to get your targets, to understand them better and to exploit it. And this whole idea of recon, test, and exploit works on any group hacking that you do, whether it's a live hacking event, whether it's the same research that I did, right? So you could have recon, test, and exploit on support systems. You understand their support and you attack it. And same thing with live hacking events. If you're doing a group hacking, you don't want to repeat the same thing that another of your groupmate already did. You want to do something that is unique and then attack it based on that. So doing a recon and then understanding and attacking is perfect. So for our case, we did a recon of finding all the companies that use Zendesk and that have a bug bounty program. We obviously did not want to go and attack, any companies that did not have a bug bounty program because in the end, then we're being malicious and hacking them for no reason, right? And for test, we started splitting up our targets to understand how they worked. So because it was between us three, we decided to choose like targets based on what we have hacked before. So for example, GitLab was something we all looked into. So we decided let's hack on it together. We reported it together. There were other companies that we reported to that like I personally hack a lot into. So I decided to like look into them more. And then someone else started looking into like the programs that they were interested in. So for example, Sripal had some private invites that he had previously reported bugs to. So he really wanted to look into those because he wanted to see if he had something critical on them. So as we did that, we started taking notes, splitting it apart, looking into it more. And we went to the exploit phase. So the exploit phase was more of understanding like how the emails are used. Once we have that Google email, what can we do? Because sometimes there's nothing. There's still one company where I have their Google email, but there's nothing I can do because everything is behind one login. So even like any public interface will force me to go through one login. And we wanted to know like which companies did that and which did not. So another phase of our attack was understanding the subdomains that the company has. So like tools like Amass become super useful for that. We used another really useful tool called cert.sh, which basically is a certification transparency logs website where it logs all the HTTPS certs for a specific domain. And we started finding internal subdomains of that. If you check our GitLab report, that's what we exactly did with GitLab because we couldn't find any external domains. So when we got that email, we're just there like, we don't know what the heck to do. We're just there sitting down, nothing to exploit on GitLab. But then once we started going through the cert attacks or cert transfers, we started finding some internal subdomains and one login, one hit on there worked perfectly and we had access to their internal system. So that's where the exploit phase comes to work. I recommend everyone doing group hacking to follow kind of the same process of doing a recon, identifying your targets, splitting it up based on what you're most experienced in. So let's say you find a GraphQL and you have someone in your group that's perfect at that has done GraphQL and for the past years, they have the full experience on that. Let them handle the exploit on that. If there's someone who is focused more into GitHub open source, recon, like they know everything about GitHub. They know exactly instances of where companies leak secrets and all that. Let them focus on that, and then focus on the exploit once you have something. So that's I think a really good strategy to approach a group hacking. But I want to jump more into the test and exploit phase. So what we did, like once we had the Google email, because there's a lot of things that you could do, and I kind of wanted to highlight all these companies that we found, all these services that we attacked. So one of them was Atlassian. I kind of mentioned Atlassian before. So what Atlassian is it has Jira and Confluence that you can download and run on your own server. But then at the same time, you can also have it installed or in the cloud environment in Atlassian.net. And it has a cool feature of allowing Google logins. So that's the first system that we attacked. That was our first process. Unfortunately, I do not have the picture of the whiteboard we had, but literally Atlassian was our first attack once we had the Google login, where we'll just type the company.atlassian.net and see if it existed. If it did, we'll log in with Google and then see if we had access to it. Because in some cases, what companies did, where if the user account did not exist, it will provision that and give us access to the Atlassian system. In other cases, it will say your access has been denied. You are not allowed to look into the system. And then we cannot do much test at that point. But that's something that I also wrote on our blog post. So if you read the blog post, you will know we mentioned Atlassian before that. The next thing was Asana. This is a kind of like a project management tool kind of things where you can message someone. There's like Google Calendars and all that features that it has. And I have a really good story about this that I wanted to tell. So what happened was we had a Google email for a company, and then we were trying to exploit. We had nothing on it. Brendan looked into all other instances like Atlassian. We could not get anything. I started looking into internal subdomains. And then and then Sri came up with the idea like, hey, let's try signing up on the company's own instance, right? Like let's just go to company8.com and then use their email to sign up as a user and see if we had some exploit from that. So he was looking into that part. It worked for other companies, but not for this particular one. So as we looked into that, we're kind of stuck. We had no idea what to do. And we're just like spitballing ideas of, we have seen this instance, like based on my work at when I interned at Tinder or when I interned at Hack or when I worked at HackerOne, and all the instances I could see like, hey, we could be using Atlassian, we could be using Zoom or anything other than like other features. And as we did that, there was another research team in the room that was like, they did not know the full exploit we were doing, but they were hearing all these tools we were mentioning, all these online tools. And one of the person from that research, he was like, why don't you guys use Asana? And none of us had any idea what it was. So he was like, yeah, this is what this tool does. It's super cool for project management. A lot of companies use it. We went to asana.com, signed in as the Google email that we had, and we had access to the project management right away. So we could see all their upcoming projects, all access to internal documents. And that's something that I'll probably mention at the end of like how internal documents can be sensitive and how I recommend everyone to look into those when you get access to these instances too. But basically they had a bunch of Google Docs that were public, that had like, they were not designed to be public, but when they shared it with someone else, they basically made it public and then we had access to it. So all we had to do was click and then open. And we had all these internal documents that had internal management ideas. We had project meeting agendas. So those were like some of the critical aspect to it. So that is where Asana became super useful to us, where having no other system and just one project management gave us access to a lot of critical secrets of the corporate system. Another was internal dashboards. A lot of people have seen these dashboards when you usually do subdomain analysis on companies. So you'll see systems where it says, please log in with @company.com in Google or something. And that's what we decided to target. That's where GitLab was mostly vulnerable because we couldn't find their Asana, their GitLab obviously didn't use Atlassian. They have their own instance on gitlab.org. So we're kind of bummed out, like we couldn't find anything on GitLab. So we decided to go through cert.sh and we started looking at all their subdomains. So once we did that, we kind of had a couple of subdomains like I think one of them was Prometheus or something, I forgot the name, that had the instance on and it said, please log in. And we're like, all right, we can give it a shot. We logged in and it gave us access. And the reason was because it was provisioning those accounts. So that's something like that was real interesting on these companies is it will, if you have the domain or if you have the Google login, and even if you didn't have an account, it will create an account for you and you'll get access to it. So that was really interesting for us to see. And we got access to a lot of internal dashboards with that. Give me a second. But like once we had these internal dashboards, we had a lot of other systems we could test because then we got access to other instances. We could see their other internal subdomains. And another was Slack instance. So previously I mentioned that Slack instances did not work for companies because it required you to have some kind of like login, or, you know, Slack instances were using the no reply with alphanumeric on creating accounts. But we used other support systems to exploit into Slack instance and kind of log in to multiple companies' Slack instance. So I'll go over that real quick with the biggest storyline on this right here. So Zendesk was not the only system that we attacked, even though that was our original point of view. Once we knew how Zendesk worked, and it was because it was using a unique hash, which we mentioned in our blog report. Once we knew how that worked, we started looking into, or we came up with an idea like, what if other support systems are using the same exact thing? What if they're kind of referencing Zendesk on their platform and are using the same idea to, you know, thread emails or reply whenever a user replies to those emails? Like, how do they thread those tickets into one single ticket? And during that instance, we started creating our own support instances, and is to like try to understand them, because most of these were unique instances. Like Zendesk, we had some experience in, but then there was a support system called Help Scout, and we had no idea how it worked. We had never used it. So we created a support instance. I spun up an email on my personal domain with support@mypersonaldomain.com to retrieve all the tickets, and started like kind of attacking / analyzing it at the same point. And we ended up finding that it did exactly the same thing as Zendesk, so we could do the whole ticket trick attack on it. But then one of the super interesting thing on there was Zendesk had spam filters. So that could prevent most of our attack, but this company did not. So what one of the person in the team, we were looking into it and they came up with like, if we can embed messages, and that's how we're attacking all this. So we could like, we'll put our name as the hash, and then that's how we'll verify it, because if the hash was on the email, it will embed it to our ticket. They came up with like, can't we possibly do the same attack on Slack? So we started looking into Slack instance, and then Slack has a super cool feature called Find My Slack Instances. What that does is you give your email, and then it will send you a list of all Slack instances you are part of. What that is super interesting is that it will also give you invitations, or like it will give you a list of invitations that you have on Slack. And for that specific portion, it also gives the name of the Slack instance and the invitation link. So what we did was we spun up our own Slack instances. I think by the end we had like 50 Slack instances we created for this. We had like the name set up to be the hash of the ticket. And then once the ticket hash we had was on the Slack, we invited the support email into that Slack. So what that will do now is put our Slack instance inside that support system, or for that email, like it's one of the invitation Slack. And once that was done, you know, we'll go to the Find My Slack instance and then put the company's support@Slack or support@domain.com into Slack, and then Slack will send it a list. It will say, hey, you can be part of this, this, and this. And because it had our invitation on it, all of that Slack instances will be listed on that ticket. So then there will be like a single launch link where you basically click on the launch. It had a single sign-on or like one-time link kind of idea where basically you click on it and it will log you in directly. So we're able to do that and log into multiple companies' Slack instances, and sometimes even sign up. So the unfortunate part of that was we had to like wait for the agent to reply to see all the Slack instances. So what we did was the one-time link didn't work for a particular company because the one-time link expires in 24 hours. So what we decided to do was, hey, try to create an account instead. So we used a classic support plus one trick where we basically signed up or invited that email with support plus one at domain.com to our Slack. And because that user account didn't exist, Slack allowed us to create our own account into the support, into those Slack instances. And once we had those, we were into like critical things. We had access to internal third-party conversations. So for example, I'm not going to mention the company or anything like that we found on there, but they basically had a single channel feature where they were inviting their clients to discuss features with them or whenever the clients had problems. So we could see all the messaging going on between them. API tokens were being passed into those messages. So you could do a lot of attacks there. And then we also had access to other one of the Slack instance had a channel that was public that had all the passwords for some of their products and environments. So those were like criticals to see once we were hacking into those. And show and tell. So that's something that's the primary focus of group hacking, in my opinion, is sharing what you're finding or anything that is unique with everyone in your group. When we came up with the Slack idea, I did a test run with a company. So I did a test run on my own and it worked obviously on my company because I had everything, I knew exactly what to do, but I wanted to see if it would work on a real bug bounty target. So again, we used to hack on the evening time. So it was at around 6, 7 p.m. I sent that test, woke up next morning. I had classes in the evening. So I was just on my computer in the morning and then I got an email reply from one of the agents and it had all the Slack instance on it. So I just took a picture of that, sent it to my friends. And I was like, it worked. Let's discuss this now. So we went, when we went to school, I did a whole demo on them on my own company to show how this works. We started taking notes of all of that. And then we started exploiting it right away. So that was something we decided to do, is do show and tell no matter how small it could be, because then someone else has an idea of chaining it. I don't know if I know exactly which event it was, but in one of the live hacking events, Johnny from, he goes with Rather Be Online on Twitter. He works at Tinder. He mentioned that he had came up with he had a unique situation where he had an environment and then he couldn't do much with it. So he asked someone, he told someone else on his group, hey, I have this environment. I don't know what to do with it. And the other person said, try this, and it worked, and they had a critical bug right away. So always sharing what you're finding, even as small as it could be a subdomain, or it could be a GraphQL environment, right? And then sharing it that with someone else will be super useful because then you get access to a lot of critical aspects to it. A classic shout out I'll give on this one is to Ed and Kareem, who did the research on Travis CI recently, and they published it because for them, it was really nice to see how they approached the whole idea of group hacking too, where they hacked on groups where someone found that something will happen with Travis CI, where it's leaking credentials. The whole team worked on creating a script to analyze it. As they found the vulnerability, Kareem started reporting it, looked into it more. And it was really nice to see the same idea where they shared what they had found among each other and then started making it a bigger bug than it could be, right? So taking a low-hanging bug potentially or hard to exploit at first to a super critical and super easy to exploit, because now once you have the script, you just run it on a company's domain on Travis CI and you see all the stickers popping up if they have one. So that was really nice to see. I just wanted to give them a shout out where they did that excellently. So let's move on to the key takeaways, what I got out from group hacking, where specifically for me, as I mentioned before, I don't do a lot of group hackings. I participate in live hacking events sometimes, but most of the time it's remote due to school. And then because of school too, I just come home, hack for an hour or something, and then start studying again. So group hacking was really not an option for me before, but being in college, being in this group has helped me to evolve on that part. So I kind of wanted to write the takeaways of that, how to use it, how you can understand key takeaways, what you can get out of what I've done in group hacking. So burnout, I think this is something that every hacker has gone through. If anyone says they haven't gone through a burnout, I'll probably sit there lying, because that's pretty much something you'll go to. And that's what has happened to me in the past, where, I have been hacking for a long time. And then when you don't find a bug, you're just there well, I cannot find things. I need to take a break. And once you start taking a break, some of the hackers have said it's really hard to get back. And that's where like group hacking comes to work. I recommend that if you're doing a break or something, and if you want to get back into hacking, work with a couple of friends, talk with them, start hacking with them, because then you kind of get excited just seeing how they are hacking. And that's literally what it was for me when I was in the break time, is because Brendan and Sri will be hacking on different targets, and I could hear them like talk about different vulnerabilities they're looking into, or a specific endpoint that they were trying to attack, and that was something that was interesting to them. So whenever I listen to that, I'll pretty much say like, hey, I can help with it. Like, send me the target. If we are in the same program, let's hack together. And that's how I got into it. You basically are surrounded by friends. You're surrounded by people who are super excited on the same thing as you are. And that kind of gives a really good environment, especially if you're hacking like face to face. So because they are college friends, we're in the same room, we know each other very well, and we're hacking together. And that was really nice to see. And I had to add this GIF is because that's literally what like group hacking will be. When I said, literally with group hacking, you can take a low hanging fruit to a critical bug that could literally be laptop closing and walking out. And I mentioned that on GitLab, if you guys were paying attention on that, when I said we didn't have anything to do GitLab attacks. We didn't have any subdomains, or like we didn't have any public domains of theirs. So we didn't know what to do. But then we're like, well, let's see if we can find something. And then Sri and I started looking into it. Brendan was in class, so Sri and I started looking into subdomains. And we started finding all these internal subdomains that I could log into. And I was just sitting there on my computer. I was like, this is not possible. I was like, this must be a public instance. So what I did was I logged out, went to my personal email, and then started signing in, and I was getting unauthorized on those. So I just sat there in disbelief, and I was just there like, seems like we got something super bad. So I was freaking out when we got access to that. I closed my laptop, took a quick lap around the room, and then get back into my chair, reported the bug, and then reached out to a couple of friends on Bug Bounty Forum saying like, if you know someone at GitLab, I need to talk right now because I got access to something bad, and I don't want them to wait till tomorrow to see it in case it could be worse. So thankfully, Yobert knew someone there. He connected me at GitLab, and then they looked into it right away, and it was pretty much resolved pretty soon. So that's where like hacking in groups come to work, where I was taking a break for a month, and then all of a sudden, once this worked, once we started attacking, I was back into that hacking mood where I was not burned out anymore. I could see them hacking, and that encouraged me to hack more. So that's where burnout is combated by group hacking. So as I said, if you're taking a break and want to get back into it, start working with friends. That will be your biggest success, and you'll get to learn so much more than you'll probably have learned in the past. Another thing is you learn things new every day. This kind of goes with the burnout idea. As you're hacking in group, someone there in that group is more qualified than you on a specific topic. It could be on mobile hacking, it could be on web app, it could be specific things on web app, for example, GraphQL, which is something new and a lot of people are looking into it. And if you have someone in your group that's better than you, you get to learn from them. There's a code that I really like to follow, and that's something I see it in live hacking event every day, every time when I participate, is if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room, because then you're not learning anything new. You're just sharing what you're learning, which is good, but then you are not learning anything new that you can share with others in the future. And live hacking event has taught me the same exact things. I've been to remote events where I hack remotely and then send the reports, but then when I see the show and tell that companies do, I get to learn something new every day, because these hackers have like really unique idea. I mean, we can just look into how Inti approaches his vulnerability reportings. He finds some crazy things on this show and tells where you're just there like, I could have never thought this will actually work, but you managed to make it work. And that's what happens in group hacking when you do show and tells. With the support instance when Help Scout, we started attacking it. We had no idea what we could do. And because we already knew like we could get the Google emails, but we wanted to get something worse. And we came up with the idea, hey, let's just try Slack and see how that works. And then as the tweet shows, like person 1 said, I tried this and it didn't work. Person 2, let's try this and try. And then person 3 is like, yeah, it worked. We got a critical now. And that's literally what happened with us when we were doing the group hacking. So that's another thing that was a key takeaway from me. for like when we do group hacking, like how useful, what you get out of it. It's not always, what you always get out of it, what you add to it too. So having been part of group hacking there has been super interesting to me. Um, I added the slide right before the presentation because I forgot. This one is the tools that helps with group hacking. It's not always communications there. You also have to have a proper management on it. You want to make sure like you are doing it properly. You have a well-timed attack or like anything of such sort that it doesn't create a lot of noise. So for us, we wanted to make sure we're not attacking the same thing. Especially for our research with support system, it was not like we were attacking one company. We were attacking a lot of different companies at once with the same attack. And we wanted to make sure we're not stepping into someone else's program, right? So let's say Brendan was hacking into Bugcrowd, and I didn't want to hack into Bugcrowd if he was, because he had already gained the idea of how it works, especially on Bugcrowd, and he's already experienced on that part. And then that's where we decided, let's do some kind of tool sharing. Let's share our passwords on LastPass. We created, even when we had the Google email, we made sure that companies were not compromised in any way in the future. So we created like 25 long character passwords for those Google accounts or any accounts we made. And then we shared amongst each other whenever we had something. So when we got the Google email, we'll share that with someone else, share in the group and be like, hey, I got this Google email. I cannot do much with it. Can someone else look into it? And then because they had the password, they could do the same. They didn't have to do the same attack again, which prevented all the noise that was needed. Another thing was GitHub. We had a whiteboard in our room, which we took notes on, but we wanted to make sure we had it when we were at our home, because having it in the room is useful when we're hacking on site. But let's say if we are all, in our homes hacking together, we still needed GitHub to share our notes. So we created a private repo, shared all our notes that we had, and then discussed that as we went through. Another thing is Excel or Google Sheet. So this is super, old tools, but it still works. Is you want to keep track of what you're doing, right? You don't want, as I said, you don't want to get into someone else's step. And that's literally what we did. We made sure we had a Google Sheet with all the domains or all the companies listed, the status of testing. So we had tested, exploited, and we had another thing. It was like literally we called it pond, when we had access to everything we needed. And the report status for like Bugcrowd or HackerOne, it was like P1, P0, P2, whatever the severity was. And that kind of helped us keep track of our work and to see like where we were when we were hacking. So whiteboards, simple but super effective. I have a whiteboard at home. We have whiteboards at school, and it's really nice because you get to show like what is going on in a way of like you are describing as you're writing instead of just typing and then sending someone that, right? So you're presenting while you're writing, and I really like that idea. I recommend people to try it. I have a video right here, or a picture right here from Ed. He already mentioned on the comment, as well as this was from H1202. This is from the video that he took picture of. In the background, you can see like behind Franz and Matthias, Matt, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He has a whiteboard there, and they were planning out like how to write a tool. And that's something that I have done frequently as I do more group hacking, is have something like where I can just write down on the whiteboard and then explain like as we go. So it's doing kind of a hacking, like an interview / hacking together kind of things. So I really like that idea, and I wanted to kind of shout out to Ed for this too, because he does a really cool, like when he does group hacking, he does really cool stuff. So I wanted to give him a major shout out on this. That said, I kind of went really quick with the presentation, but I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for watching this. Thanks for Bugcrowd for inviting me or accepting my talk on this CFP. And thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, we have a couple of minutes left, so I'm happy to answer them. I'm on the YouTube chat as well, monitoring it. So if you have questions, let me know. Anything about the research, anything about, I think someone mentioned about the Uber SendGrid. So if you have questions about those, anything about group hacking or anything like that, feel free to ask.
Looks like Ed appreciated your shout out.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of give him that surprise too, because I know he does really good works on these things.
Yeah, that was so it was Franz was on the left in that picture, and it was Matthias Carlson, or Evlidienbrunn is his researcher name.
Yeah, I know his first name. I just didn't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Matthias is how I pronounce it, but yeah, he's a great team, great group out of Sweden. And earlier I remembered Stoke Friedrich. He's also from Sweden as well.
Yeah,
they're a good crew out there.
all right.
Well, I mean, unless we have anything coming through chat here over the next little bit, I guess we can move on. But guess we'll wait for a few more seconds, see if anything comes in. Ed asks, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of an interesting question given. So Ed asks how you guys decide how to split out the bug bounties in a team, which is kind of interesting because at Bug Crowd, we will have something that will help with that soon. But I'm interested in how you would even, how do you decide on what percentage? Like, oh, I'm going to give you 20% or 30% or whatever. How do you guys discuss that amongst yourselves, and how do you decide what's fair?
So for most of it, like there were some programs where we were just invited as like a person. So let's say Sri was invited to a specific program and he was hacking on it. We did not want to any split bounties on that because that was his program. He spent the effort on it. Even though we're doing group works, I said, you take the bounty because you put the effort on it. You chose the target. You went on the full exploit phase. And if you need help, we can help, but we are not going to take bounties on that. Another thing, we did was for some of the programs, we did bounties based on effort. So for example, if one person does the full exploit, so they did the whole Zendesk attack, got the Google email, and we helped them with like exploiting it further, we'll do like something like they take the 70% or 75% of the bounty and we take the last bits of it. I think in one particular program, Brendan and I did a 50-50 on it because we both were invited on it and we're hacking together. And we like both escalated it in a different manner. So he had the Zendesk, but he was having problem with Google. So like there were different emails being used. So he already knew it was vulnerable, but they were not using like support at emails. So we had to go find different emails. And that's where I helped him with, we attacked it further. We came up on we did a Zoom meeting because he was at home, and then we started attacking it. So that's where like the 50-50 comes to work. But in the end, for me personally, like bounty is more of a kind of a benefits or a token from a company. So our split more of was like effort based. Sometimes it was just 50-50 and sometimes it was 100% on whoever did the whole attack. If you are invited on that program, like if you're the only person on it, just do it yourself because you know the idea, like you have done the research, you have the experience, do it, get the bounty, and then, you enjoy that bounty, right? So that's what we focused on.
Okay.
I think he also had a question.
Casey asked a question in chat. Yeah, he asked, are there any reasons that you can think of that program owners wouldn't want to allow this sort of collaboration on their particular program or engagement?
There were some programs where they're kind of like skeptical on having collaborators on or something like that. One of the reasoning was like that person is invited, but we haven't seen them hack a lot. So like, how do we guarantee that he's not exploiting it or something? But other than that, like I honestly think a lot of programs are getting into more of collaborators idea. And one thing I'll highly recommend is if you're doing a group hacking, it's something like unique, for example, like Travis CI that Ed did, support system, or anything like you do on group hacking, talk about it on public because then the companies can see the result of it and they will see the benefits of it, right? Right now, like group hacking is not known a lot except through like live hacking events, bug bashes, or some of these like blogs that come out. And that's what's making the companies understand, like, instead of having one hacker just report the bug and then they send it to other hackers, we can encourage it by having a feature. And Bug Crowd is doing it now. HackerOne has done it, is the collaborators feature. And that has encouraged a lot of group hacking in the past, and it still does. And companies are realizing having these groups hack together will give them more vulnerabilities that are severe than just like getting low hanging fruits or like low severity bugs every day. So I think more like the more we talk about it, the more publicity it gets, it will be something that a lot of companies will run towards, because everyone at the end, like everyone wants success in their program. No one wants to have a case where they're not paying any bounties and then one day they find out like a hacker has been on their system for 9 months, right? So having this kind of group hacking or kind of investing on that is something I think every program will want to do. It's just that they want to see an evidence of it being successful before they even dive into it. Because one thing a lot of hackers I think don't realize is, and I didn't realize this until I was interning at Tinder, is when you run a program, it's not just the security team involved on it. There's other red tips, there's legals and others involved on it. And you want to convince them, like security team will be fine with the group hacking them. But then you want to convince the legal team, like, hey, these groups are something you can trust. They're not malicious groups. They're not anonymous, like, you know, some kind of hacking group out there that are just going to pawn us and then share our data on darknets or something like that. So the more we tweet, the more we give the publicity to group hacking, the better it will get for every one of us.
Hey, Ron, I had a quick question. Did you run into any like resistance because some of the ways you were getting in were through third-party services and on a custom application that the clients actually had, or the programs had actually developed?
Yeah, so there was a particular instance where we reported the vulnerability. So there's like a really, I guess like a good learning thing that we had is we reported the bug and the company for some reason thought it was a Zendesk vulnerability. So basically what happened was they reported it to Zendesk saying, hey, this is your flaw and we're getting attacked. But in the end, it was not like a Zendesk flaw at all. It was a feature they had, you know, it was not like it was designed to be a feature in general. So like nothing you could fix or nothing Zendesk had to fix. But because the Zendesk team got it as a potential like hacking attempts going on, they asked HackerOne like, hey, what is this hacker doing? Like he's attacking our potential companies or our clients and what's going on. So we had a couple of resistance from those programs where they were like, you're attacking Zendesk, not us. Explain to us like why this is our issue. So what we did in dealing that, and this is like where the report writing concept comes to work, is you want to tell them exactly what you did and you don't want to tell them like any extra stuff that's not necessary. So what we told them was, hey, this is your Zendesk instance and we understand you think this is a Zendesk vulnerability, but this is where Zendesk tells it's not their vulnerability. And we told them like about Zendesk documents where they clearly mentioned it was a feature, and the support team looked into it afterwards, like the security team looked into it and they said, oh yeah, we thought we fixed this, but turns out someone disabled the feature again. So that's like where a couple of resistance came. There was one particular resistance where, because this was an ongoing research, like we're looking into how to exploit this further. So we were able to use the emails to get access to like a specific third party. I do not have the permission from anyone on that yet. So I don't know, like I'm not going to mention the third party yet, but basically we got access to that company's third party. And then we let them know on the report saying like, hey, we were, you know, not for that specific company, but we're testing it on our own instance. And we got into our own instance third party system. And we let them know saying, hey, like we're able to verify this works on this system too. We ask you to kindly like verify that as well. And they first thought we exploited against them. So they're like, hey, please stop doing this research. Like this is making it hard for us to fix stuff. So we had that kind of resistance where I think more of it is like miscommunication, trying to like let them know of something else and they understand something else on it. So that was a like a kind of a bad side of it when we're doing research. So there were a couple of moments like that. But there was also a really good moment. The report is not public yet. I really hope it goes public. Is we reported it to the company and they are based in Europe. So when we reported it, it was like 12 p.m., like it was midnight or 12 a.m. It was midnight there. And the person involved in that program got up because it was critical for them. And he started looking into it. And we had like a really lengthy communication back and forth on how to fix it. So like we're discussing, like he was talking what he was seeing on his side and we're mentioning like what we were testing. So it was like a really good conversation between our teams. And in the end, like it has been a really good kind of communications with them that I really hope I can do with other programs. So I'm really hoping like once they close the report as resolved that we can public it and show it to the world, like how companies will approach this environments or like this kind of situation, because you don't usually see, you know, like for example, Travis CI, you don't usually see that come up like every day. And when you get those kind of reports, like how do you deal with that? Do you like just deal with saying like, hey, thanks, and then don't do anything else? Or do you like talk with the researcher because they are researching on that and kind of understand their perspective, why they are researching it, what they have found fixes the vulnerability, and go on through that. So that's something I really hope I can share once it gets public.
Cool. Rohan has linked or has talked about Ed Overflow and team, their research on CIs, and I just posted the link in the chat for you guys in case you hadn't read it. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I highly recommend reading that. It was really nice to look at it and like understand what they were doing it, because Travis CI is something I found out about quite a while ago, and I was like interested to see if that'll happen, but I never got to it. And when Ed published the bug, it was like perfect thing because I wanted to learn that for a while.